Hello guys, HL here, coming to you with another World of Warships Blitz video. In today's video, we will be taking a look at 5 tips and tricks for the Japanese gunboats, which is basically the destroyer line that ends with Haragumo. Before we get into the video though, I just wanted to thank you guys who stay subscribing and support this channel even though I do not upload videos regularly as I am pretty busy now. I also wanted to thank the new subscribers for joining, as it means a lot to me, and I also can't wait to reach 100 subscribers. I also don't have any ideas of what to upload for the 100 subscriber special when it arrives, so if you guys can think of any ideas, please don't forget to leave them down in the comment section down below. For the sake of simplicity, I will be referring to most ships in their T8 or Tier 8 version, such as the Akizuki instead of the Haragumo, the Cleveland instead of the Worcester, and the Amalfi instead of the Venezia. If you guys hear some weird in-game sounds, or weirdness in the sound like clipping, buzzing, or weird repeated text, it's because the September update seems to be clashing or having conflict with the software that I use to record my game, and it is basically a built-in software on my phone, and I don't really have other softwares that are good, so there is nothing much I can do about that. So I just want to apologize if you guys find the sound irritating. But with all of those out of the way, let's get into the video, and here is tip number 1. Coming in at tip number 1 is to use your guns. The first thing that I have seen many players do when playing with the Akizuki, as they do not really understand the Japanese gunboat line, is they play it similarly to a torpedo boat line such as the Shenyang or the Kagero, the torpedo counterpart of the Japanese line. The Akizuki only has 4 torpedoes in a single configuration, or they all fire together, and the torpedoes are easily detected from far away, which make them less ideal to use. She is, however, equipped with 8 110mm guns with a 3-second reload time, so those guns will be your main source of damage as they can spam lots of shells. The primary shells or primary armament you'll be wanting to use, or rather let's just say ammunition, the primary ammunition you will want to use with these 8 guns are going to be HE shells, as 100mm won't get you too much damage if you use AP. The HE can start lots of fires even though their fire chance is low, because the sheer number of shells you can output with a 3-second reload time is just astounding. With the way fire damage is calculated after the update, we should be targeting ships with low fire protection and prevention, which is basically most ships outside of the American Navy line, because the American line just has higher protection, which makes it harder to start fires as well as makes fires deal less damage. While this is the case, you can certainly still deal decent damage to them as fires do stack, so once you have like 2 or 3 fires running, you will eventually burn them down. They are also worth targeting if it is simply more strategic in situations such as your teammate is brawling with them or they are trying to flank. The Akizuki, as you can see, her guns have really high shell arcs, or what some players would call the rainbow shell arcs. While her shells are slow, which can make it hard to hit enemy destroyers that are weaving around, the high shell arcs can be used to your advantage in situations like shooting from behind an island. Shooting from behind an island allows you to throw shells at the enemy, such as, this is best for shooting BBs by the way, so you can chuck the shells over the island, farm the BB, and the BB won't be able to do anything to you. Just keep in mind, while doing that, there's a chance of you being spotted as well, from the sides or from the air if there is a CV around. You also have to keep decent map awareness when chucking shells over the island, so you do not get flanked. When Japanese gunboats are played correctly, her guns can certainly deal lots of damage over time. At tip number 2 is to push cautiously. Before I get into this tip, I just wanted to mention that Akizuki, in my opinion, among all of the DDs, is certainly one of the worst at capturing zones. This is because her large size makes her easily spotted, her slow rudder shift and her long size make her turn out slowly, which means cruisers like the Cleveland and the Amalfi can easily get lots of shots on her and deal damage. She can also be torpedoed by other DDs, as they can torpedo from stealth and the Akizuki can't see them, so there's nothing I can do about it, or we can do about it if we are in the Akizuki. In order to play with these limitations, or rather the weaknesses of the Akizuki, I will usually prefer to push with a friendly cruiser or BB, as they will help deter or to some extent at least prevent the enemy cruiser or destroyer to take full liberty in shooting you and torpedoing you so that you die and get out of the cap. Friendly ships overall, like I said, are good support, so they will basically give you a higher chance of surviving and dealing more damage. Personally, the way I prefer to push the cap for situations that start like the start of the match is I'll move towards the cap at full speed, start to turn towards the direction, let's say the right side, as I reach the cap. So by the time I'm in the cap, I'm already turning out of the cap. I do this to ensure that by the time I capture the capture zone, I will already be leaving to prevent myself being clapped by other ships. Flanking is also good to do in the Akizuki, but also just keep in mind that you are going to be easily spotted by enemy DDs lurking in the area, so be prepared to pull out and leave if a situation starts to get bad. Coming after tip number 2, we have tip number 3, which is to use the smoke consumable wisely. Firstly, I would like to give a brief explanation of the smoke consumable. As you can see at the consumables bar, the smoke is the icon on the left. It basically starts a smoke screen when you press the button, which follows your ship for a little bit until it runs out. The smoke also has a time limit, so you will only be covered until the time runs out. Most of the time, the smoke is to set up a temporary position to spam HE shells as well as get cover if you have been spotted by the enemy. Smoke can also cover your teammates, which certainly make it harder for enemy ships or CVs to target you. One thing about the smoke though is many players stay inside until 1 or 2 seconds before it runs out, which is kind of bad because the enemy at the time already has guns trained on your area, so the smoke will suddenly vanish, leaving you vulnerable to enemy shells. An alternative method which I personally like to use is to get out the smoke 7 to 10 seconds before it ends, so that I'm far away enough to prevent being hit. While dragging your smoke or laying the smoke screen, I prefer to move at half speed instead of full speed because moving at full speed often makes you overshoot when the smoke ends, which means you will be exposed for a brief moment before you get a chance to reverse back into the smoke, which means the enemy can hit you. Moving at half speed instead of just sitting stationary and smoking also creates a smoke screen that's broader, or let's just say it's pulled over a wider area, so you have a little bit more room to move back and forth so that the enemy doesn't blind shoot you. The smoke, if you guys didn't realize, is also able to the enemy can still shoot you when you are in the smoke because they can still see where your shells are coming from, roughly from where they fly out of the smoke. So something that has a fast fire rate can afford to just try to be really lucky. Something like the Cleveland can start spamming shells into the smoke and hope to get you. I have also been torpedoed when in the smoke by an enemy CV, an Ark Royal to be precise. The Ark Royal basically saw where the shells were coming from and dropped a set of torps, which took me out instantly. So moving back and forth in the smoke is definitely a thing you can try to do. Being careful where you smoke is also very important, as you do not want to smoke up directly in front of something with radar like a Cleveland. If you do for some reason smoke up, the Cleveland will most likely pop the radar consumable and detect you instantly, which means she will start firing on you. Instead, the smoke is best used when you are a decent distance away, like what you can see in my videos when I do use the smoke, so you can still disengage if you need to. My captain for the destroyers isn't a high enough level, but when it gets there, I will be choosing the Mistweaver consumable so I can have more smoke, which allows me greater stealth and better chance for being a better gunboat. Next up, at tip number 4 is to analyze matchmaking results before the game starts. For me, I like to do this because you can see how many BBs, armored cruisers, light cruisers and DDs are on the enemy team. The presence or absence of a CV also allows me to plan the style I play. For matches that a CV is present, I will usually play more conservatively as the CV can easily spot you from the air, which means trying to top from stealth or shoot from behind the islands will be a little bit less of an option. If I see ships like the Roma or the Richelieu, really powerful ships, I will usually try to flank them and push them back to make them have less of an impact on my team. Noting the number of cruisers is also a thing I will note, because if there are no cruisers or cruisers with weak anti-destroyer capabilities, not to say that they are weak, just not so good at fighting destroyers, stuff like the Prince Eugen, the Admiral Hipper and Japanese Takao, I will basically play a little bit more bravely, or I'll rush a little bit more compared with the American radar ship, the Cleveland, or the Italian pizza shooter ship, you could say, the Step Shells, as these two ships basically look like they were born to fight against destroyers. You can also plan to help your friendly BBs, like if you see a Bismarck and you know the enemy has some torpedo destroyer, you can also move ahead of the Bismarck to fend off the Kagero. Let's just say the Kagero in this situation, as you can fend her off because the Kagero in most situations wouldn't want to fight with an Akizuki, or would lose as the Akizuki just has a very high rate of fire. Another thing I like to do, which this is just my opinion, like guys, it's purely my opinion, so yeah, if you guys disagree with it, please tell me what you think in the comment section down below. Basically, I like to look at what league the players are in. While many of you guys think this is inaccurate, and yes, there are many situations which leagues are inaccurate, being Legend League players playing like they're fresh and top players playing like, Legend League players playing like as though they are just an average guy, and the average player, let's say League 6 or League 7, playing really well. I just like to see like this thing because it personally allows me to instantly try and gauge who is most likely to be skilled, so I know which ship to look out for. If let's say the CV or the cruiser is really skilled, I will start playing really carefully, as I don't want them to target me and run me down. If I see something like a Roma with a legendary guy, and if he has a top player symbol like top 100, I will try to target him to push him back so he does not deal so much damage to my team. Last but not least, at tip number 5, we have constantly altering course and speed. Basically what I mean is to move your acceleration to the maximum, so you start moving forward and then suddenly hit stop, which means dropping your acceleration all the way down to reverse. Swerving, or I'll just call it altering course, which basically means swerving, makes it harder for the enemies to hit you. Doing this makes you move left and right, and basically it's a situation where I would like to call go stop, go stop. This makes you very unpredictable, so stuff like the cruisers, which are good at dealing with you, basically stuff like Cleveland and Amalfi, have a hard time hitting you, though that doesn't mean you should go around challenging them. Sailing perpendicular, or let's just say 90 degrees, sailing away from a cruiser or a BB that you are kiting, is also very good, as they will have to deal with you eventually, because if not, you will deal quite a bit of damage. So kiting will basically let you help your team as it reduces pressure. Just remember that while kiting, try to sail at a 90-degree angle or almost 90 degrees so that you are harder to hit. Doing this also makes it harder for the carrier to torp you. As you can see, I suddenly moved away, so the enemy's torpedo missed. Taking torpedoes in this thing definitely hurts because it's a destroyer and doesn't have that much health. Additionally, if you are lucky, you can dodge bombs on air or bombs from aircraft carriers when you dodge, because the bombs are not 100% accurate. Doing this will overall help you reduce the damage taken, increase your survivability, and let you play for longer, thus allowing you to support your team. So basically, with all of these are the 5 tips and tricks I will be offering today for destroyers. Next up, I will be sharing a replay which I will be analyzing to show you guys how I use these tips and how I play to get the most damage out of the Akizuki, or the Japanese gunboat line basically. So here we have the match. As you can see, I analyze it, I notice a Taiho and no cruiser, so I basically mean I can move around quite freely. I also will try to target the Yugumo because I do not want the ships on my team to get torpedoed, and the Alaska is certainly not the best DD hunting cruiser as the guns fire a little slowly. The map we will be playing on is Haunted Seas Domination, and as you can see, I have spawned at the side of the sea cap. The enemy team has 2 destroyers, so there definitely is one at B cap and definitely one at C cap. I start moving forward towards C, and I do it carefully, or rather, you can't see me doing anything in particular right now other than move towards it because the enemies have not appeared. The enemy Taiho has released his planes. Luckily for me, he's going towards the A and B cap, which means in theory I will be quite safe from being spotted early in the match. There is certainly an enemy destroyer approaching the C cap, so I start to turn away and reduce my speed so that I stay in the cap just long enough. An enemy ship has appeared. It is the Amagi and the cruiser, or not a cruiser, there's no cruiser in this match, I'm sorry. I can't really see what ship it is. Yeah, it's a gas can. So basically an Amagi and a gas can, which means I can turn deep into the cap for now as there is no DD fighting me. I do not start shooting at them with my shells just yet because I am still in pretty open waters, which means they can shoot me. I decide to smoke up and start opening up on them. As you can see, sometimes you get really lucky and you start fires instantly. The Amagi doesn't damage con, which is good for me in this situation, but just as I start shooting at the Amagi, the Yugumo appears out of the side. The Yugumo then proceeds to top our Alaska, which basically kills him off for the most part. He's almost dead. So I try to open up on the Yugumo as much as I can because I do not want the Yugumo to get away and try to top another ship. However though, the slow shell velocity of these guns can be annoying at times when you are trying to hunt a DD, as they are small shells and you need to land lots of them to deal damage. Landing shells here and there is causing the Izumo or the Yugumo to run away, but it's not enough to kill her. The gas can suddenly appears around the corner, so I decide to torp and start turning away. One thing for sure, friendships definitely do have decent secondaries, so while they are not as good as their German counterparts on, let's say, the tier 8 Bismarck or Tirpitz, they will still hurt if you stay in their range for a long time. So I basically hit speed boost, dropped my torps and ran away. As you can see from tip number 5, I said kiting. So basically I'm kiting away now, sailing at a 90 degree, or not really 90 degrees because the gas can is angled, but I'm sailing away from the gas can and just shelling her non-stop to force her to do something about it, otherwise she will just be farmed for lots of damage. She's still targeting some other ship, so I can farm her quite safely. That's why I'm starting to turn around so I can use all of my guns on the gas can. Even with the small shells, her fire rate is simply so fast on the Akizuki that I easily chip down the gas can and get the Counter-Strike medal. Now I am pushing forward as there doesn't seem to be much action left at the C cap, so I want to get to the A and B cap where most of the action is going, because you don't want to just sit around and do nothing, as that is certainly not supportive for your team. The enemy CV still doesn't look like she's interested in coming over to C to check me out, so I am still sailing around with some kind of impunity, as other than the Taiho, which is not targeting me, there's nothing really there that can counter me. So yeah, nothing to worry about. I'm pushing towards the enemy BB. If I'm not mistaken, it's an Amagi. I'm not opening, I just opened up on her because I looked around. That doesn't look like there's anything that's going to shoot me, and Amagi is turned away. So I decide to start farming the Amagi. As you can see, I started a fire. Sorry, and please excuse me for that. I basically start farming the Amagi, and her guns are turned into opposite direction. That's why she's not doing anything to me. There's also no need to smoke because the enemy's CV has already noticed me and I'm pretty spotted, so smoking now wouldn't be very useful. I just dodged and the CV's torps missed, which certainly helped a lot because I survived longer without taking the torp damage. Now I boost my engines because my plan is to rush the Taiho as the Taiho is sailing in a straight line. I basically start smoking now because the Taiho has HE guns as with all aircraft carriers other than the Saipan. I fire the torps, hit the instant torp reload and drop another set of torps. Here the Taiho drops torps and I just start moving, so I catch one. However, I did not predict that the Taiho would simply back away so fast, so some of my torps miss and I don't get a total top strike. The torps, however, are Japanese torps, so they still deal decent damage. As you can see, the Taiho is almost dead. She's flooding, so all that's left to do is to farm her until she sinks. At this point, I've already got 76k damage, which I would say is okay or not too bad for a destroyer, as this is certainly not the everyday match, as sometimes your teammates just go total potato and there's no way you can get this. Or if you get really strong combos like a CV that's helping spot and a cruiser that's helping chase you down or protect its enemy battleships, you can't do anything about it as you will be gunned down the moment you approach. Here I notice the Amagi again. I start pushing forward towards the Amagi and start farming her because as you can see the time is starting to run out, so there's no point to really hide or try to move to a slightly more strategic position. I'm also sailing straight towards the Amagi bow in, which means her inaccurate Japanese guns will have a little bit of a problem trying to hit me. I suddenly spot the Yugumo, and the Yugumo has only a little bit of health, so I decide to prioritize targeting her so I can pick up the kill. Time is running out and the Yugumo is almost dead, but the shells eventually take her out, which gives me 2 kills and 79k damage, ending the match giving me the battle star, the big caliber and some other medals. In conclusion, the Japanese gunboat line is a very fun line to play because it certainly offers a lot of shell spamming and running around opportunities to just annoy the hell out of the enemy. That's basically all for the tips and tricks video. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like the video if you like my content. My name is HL and I'll see you guys next time.